So you want to become a front-end developer or maybe you're just wondering what areas you should focus on as a new front-end developer. Well, don't worry, because I have hired and I've interviewed many front-end developers throughout my career. And in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what you should be focusing on to get a job as a front-end developer. So to get a job as a junior front-end developer, these are the main things I would focus on. So my primary focus would obviously be proficiency in JavaScript. So learn the ES6 concepts like arrow functions, like destructuring, the REST spread operator, using async await. These are all very prominent things, and you will see them a lot in front-end development, especially when using a library like React. If you're interested in learning a superset of JavaScript, I would go TypeScript, because that is used very heavily in the industry. That being said, you don't really have to focus on it right now. TypeScript is something that you can definitely learn on the job. It's not a requirement. I'd say if you are going to learn TypeScript, focus on the simple things like know how to use interfaces, know how to type things properly. I would argue those are probably the most important things, and that's what TypeScript is heavily used for, because it just makes working in the IDE and it makes using the IntelliSense a lot easier. Next up would be some proficiency in HTML. So know how to structure a page. There are things that you don't really need to know as a junior. For example, you don't need to dive deep into accessibility, because that is a very deep rabbit hole, and I could seriously talk about accessibility all day. That is way beyond the scope of this video, and I will not do that. HTML can get pretty advanced, and there are things that senior devs do not know. So don't worry about it. Just know the basics of it. Next up would be proficiency with a library or a framework. So this would be something like Angular, Vue.js, React. And if you want my honest opinion, I would 100% go with React. For starters, it's just an easier learning curve than Angular. It's very widely used, which means there's tons of questions, tons of help on the internet, there's tons of documentation. A lot of companies that I've talked with and that I've worked with are even converting Angular code bases to React. Not to mention, if you go Angular, you do need to know TypeScript, because Angular is built on TypeScript. Another great benefit of knowing React is it's almost entirely transferable to React Native. There are differences, but if you know React, the learning curve to learn React Native is very, very small. And the last thing I would honestly focus on is CSS. And honestly, you're not even required to be proficient in it, especially not as a junior. Many companies have massive style sheets or style frameworks in place already. And even if they don't, there is very likely a UX team or design team in place at that company to make any kind of stylistic decisions for you. Really, all you have to do is translate what they want into CSS. And a lot of the time, some of them will even give you direct CSS to implement. And the reason I put this last is because out of all the interviews I've done, I don't think I've ever had to write CSS. And in the interviews I've given, I know I don't make the candidates ever write CSS. It's usually create something functional, and I don't care what it looks like. I just want it to work. So it'll usually be something more like building React components, hitting an API, that sort of stuff. And obviously, as the positions advance, if I'm interviewing a senior, it gets a little more complex, but never CSS. Now, most important of all, as a junior, I can't stress this enough. This is so important. This is more important than just about everything on this list, are your soft skills. Be an effective communicator. Talk through your thoughts with an interviewer. If you are doing a coding challenge, speak through your thought process. I can't tell you how many times I've had candidates just sit there completely silent and they don't even talk. They wait for me to say something before they talk. And this isn't something that's exclusive to juniors. I've interviewed seniors that do the same thing. Also, don't pretend like you know everything, because that is also blatantly obvious in an interview. Admit to the things that you're not sure of, but have a willingness to learn them. And just show an eagerness to learn and improve. This is stuff that is a great sign for a junior. I interviewed a junior candidate one time who didn't do very well on the coding challenge at all, but their soft skills were amazing. They were a very, very friendly person. They were a very effective communicator. They actively took notes during the interview. They asked a lot of questions. They were wondering what they could do better, and they were very willing to learn. This is somebody who I actually ended up hiring, and this person ended up being an excellent junior. So just focus on those things and you will do great at your next interview. I promise you. If you have any questions whatsoever, leave them in the comments below and I will do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks for watching.